Good morning. It is Friday, and that means it's time for the Friday Grief Chat.
Yay!
Hey,
I'm Deb.
I'm Jill.
Jill. No,
Deb.
Jill.
Deb.
That way.
There we go.
No, it's hard enough in somatic yoga figuring out my left and right, and then crossing them over in my mind
Right, because
sometimes.
when you're
Yeah,
on camera, it switches around.
I know it does. It does. How was your week?
Oh, you know what? There was a video on social media this week that showed somebody at the beach with one of those mop buckets. It's got the squeegee, and he went out
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
ocean and he got a bunch of ocean in his mop, and then he squeezed it into the bucket and then ran back. And it said therapists in this time of at this time of our lives, with the current situation.
Yes.
And that's kind of how it's been. Yeah, we
Yes.
we have we have no sense of quiet or calm or anything.
That's it's I got to turn my phone down
I
here.
just did mine too as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It,
yeah, it's been a heck of a week around here, just because it's just been that kind of week.
yeah, it's been like that around here
Mm-hmm.
the last couple weeks, and uh, in this day and age, so we had a minister at well, let's just say the previous minister is really against our church and what we stand for. That's the
Can't
best way.
stand it when there are church schisms like that. I've
Yeah.
lived through a few myself.
And so he was the previous minister.
Mm-hmm.
And so spewing fears on social media, right? Like I'm saying right now, I'm on social media and spewing fears. And when people spew their fears, and we're currently they were friends with someone else. We see this play out in politics all the time.
We
They
do.
say one thing. Look at J.D. Vance. Look at how against he was different people. And now they're besties, right? Or
Right. And they're
whatever.
good people.
Yes, yes, good people. And so we see fears. So I'm focusing on fears play out all the time, and it can leave really hurt people.
Yeah.
And so this week I have been, besides the tornadoes and the weather and Mother Nature's off her meds,
Right.
um, really sort of listening. It didn't matter how I felt listening to fears and how it affected me. I really had to put my feelings aside, like many therapists.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I'm feeling all those things too, and focus on our congregants or focus on other people. So hearing constant fears, which it's complicated because you on your private page and me on my private. Steve Altman just people can read it later, but he's pretty funny. But people are afraid,
Yeah.
and as you and I are for our friends and ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
we're having part of where this is leading to is we are putting on at Unity Church and Spiritual Center, where I am the minister,
Mm-hmm.
our spiritual arts and crafts fair in conjunction with a what's called Boneyard, because it's called the Boneyard Creek Boneyard
Hmm.
Arts Festival. So we have various artisans, we have various types of people who are into different types of spirituality,
I love
and
that.
they share that.
Lots of
And
diversity in there.
lots of diversity and different types of modalities, health modalities. And then there's, bracelets and whimsical and books and all sorts of stuff. And I'm saying this because based on current vibes, I have to watch what I put on the signs that are further away from our church.
Mm-hmm.
And because people are just, Andrew Vitale, right?
Right.
He
Mhm.
put on Facebook, your opinions, I'm not going to get this right, but you can say what you want, but you can't do what you want.
Right.
And that's basically it. So if you're against what our church does, anybody, I mean, it's not like we're talked about a lot in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do not follow mainstream Christianity, much like the schism in the Methodist Church, much
Mm-hmm.
like schisms within the Catholic Church. And, it's a loss of freedom. I just want to talk the grief of the loss of freedom when you are and people who are not pro current administration, they said, well, imagine how we felt for all these years. And I go, why didn't you speak up?
Mm-hmm.
And now that there's demonstrations all over the place this weekend, that's because people are feeling the loss of their freedoms and the upcoming losses of their freedoms.
And loss of a sense of control, which is the big part of all grief.
Exactly.
Every bit of grief is loss of control because something you love has been taken from you.
That's right.
Right. And that's,
And I say, if you felt like that all these years, why didn't you speak up? You have a voice as much as I do. So why didn't you show up to rallies? Why didn't you show up to this? Why didn't, I end with a semi quote from the League of Women Voters, who is nonpartisan. So I say at Unity, after I'm done, spiritual growth, much like democracy, is not a spectator sport. And
right.
So I'm like,
and it takes work.
It does. Any relationship you have with anything takes work.
It does.
And, and you and I both know when people are feeling a loss, the way they might make meaning of that loss is to put down other people. Because that gives them a sense of control. It changes the balance just for them, but they put down people. And
which is why schoolyard bullies do it.
That's what a bully is about. A bully, even they were called the Berenstain Bears or the
Berenstain Bears. Yes.
Berenstain Bears, right? When I was feeling bullied back in the 90s by another family member, I bought the Bully Berenstain Bears so I could sort of get a different perspective because I was so in mine. And bullies are really hurt people, and hurt people.
Yes.
That's, Yeah.
They
Yeah.
lash out to make themselves feel better and to make other people feel the way they did. And that also happens during grief when somebody is comparing losses, for instance.
Oh,
That's where you get people not supporting each other mutually, but instead going at each other or abandoning someone who's experiencing loss,
yeah. Yeah.
right? And we don't, nobody needs that. And we
No.
especially don't need that right now. Yeah.
And it's different. This is what I'm finding. When you put out, and a lot of things can be fact checked on Snopes, and I'm going to use you as an example, Jill, who
Mm-hmm.
puts out facts. This is what is happening in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And those can be fact checked. And they go, that's just your opinion. And so there's a loss as a science person. People put out things that are not fact checked. That's number one. Number two, they say that's just an opinion. That's your perspective. No, it's a fact. It was written about blah blah blah. So people don't check their facts and they don't look up the definition of opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They don't look up the definition of perspective. When there is an accident, there's several perspectives, right? Because you have a person standing in the north, there's a person standing in the east, west. That's what referees do during a game, and you do your best. Those are like combined perspectives.
That's why we have instant replay now.
Yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
from different perspectives. So we can
Right.
sort of fact check what happens. Yeah. Um, the other thing I wanted to bring up was perspective. For those of us who have been diagnosed with, uh, I'll use myself as an example. Many years ago, and I still have them in my brain, I have what's called cavernous malformations. And the doctor, one of my doctors, not the first one, but the second one, leaned forward really close when I was asking questions. And he said, I don't think you understand. You're going to die from this. And then he went on to explain a couple easy ways that we take for granted, going potty and sneezing on
Right.
coughing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went home for 2 days and said, F me. And I got bored. I did. That's me. And I decided, well, I'm just going to wake up every day and go, I'm still here. And and I think I told you about I have a boutique list things I want to wear before I die.
That's right.
I have another friend that is going to be going through bone marrow uh,
Mm.
checking for a disease that he had long ago that's been in remission for a long time. And he and I were talking about this. And he said, how do you get through different days, right? And so, because being told a diagnosis, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
you have pancreatic cancer that gives you 5 years, whether you have something that can last 10 years, who knows? The first thing is, I think it's good to know your kryptonite, that which sends you through the roof. So when people say, well, I had a friend, and you go, no,
Stop right there.
stop right there. That means you have to know your kryptonite. So that might
Mm-hmm.
happen a couple times to you.
Mm-hmm.
Or God doesn't give you any more than you can handle.
Oh my goodness, did I just put that away for someone yesterday?
What did you say to that person?
I said, I find it very hard to think that there's any being that's out there that's taking time to treat us like a monopoly board and loading us up based upon what each of us can handle. And I don't think that, for me, it works to think that there's some kind of formula. Sometimes shit just happens. And that is the reality of it. And I've got lots of people I see who are experiencing that to various degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's created by other people, like, I don't know, the economy right now. But sometimes, especially when it comes to illness or accidents or, things that we have zero control over, it just is.
Exactly.
And I observed that's long ago. There was a book written when bad things happen to good people.
Good people, yes.
Right. And that's the reality. Bad things do happen to good people, and bad things happen to people who've done bad things too. It just is.
It just
the reality is, how do you cope with it, manage it, allow for it, make space for it, support others experiencing it? How do you do that?
So yes. And I just wrote somebody else. What's the best thing you learned from your therapist? Use the word
and.
Use the word and. So the thing I was saying to my friend was, I knew I began healing when I said to myself, based on something I was no longer part of, I said, I had 10 good years. And I am grateful for that. I made meaning in a way that helps me. Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book, The Meaning of Life, and maybe Jill and I have talked about this before. He was somebody he was a psychiatrist in the concentration camps. And talk about despair. You're hungry, you're tired, you're sick, and if you don't show up to work, you're dead, meaning they will shoot you. So he plodded along, but he kept this picture going in his mind about the future. And he said, someday I will speak in front of hundreds of people about how thinking about the future moved me forward in the work line to get the work done. So this friend and I were talking this morning, and I said, that's the first thing. Well, the first thing is know your kryptonite. What sets you on edge? And like I started to say, you might not know that till somebody comes along and says something that really pisses you off. That's number one. Number two, what can you be grateful for? If you know you're going to die in 5 years, what can you be grateful for now?
Yeah, and that was something that Linda had to do. And in fact, this is the 15th anniversary of her death this week. And when we were first told that she had stage 3 aggressive breast cancer and she was going to be dead in 5 months, then there was decision making to do to how to make use of that time and fight cancer at the same time. That was the and.
Yes.
And then when she was clear of cancer, or at least done with the treatment, then it became, we still know we're on borrowed time because it had already been metastatic. And there were 18 positive lymph nodes in just one area. So we knew it was places. She, in fact, died without cancer in her body. But the chemo got her. But what she decided was, I'm going to make use of the time. We're going to do all the experiences. Same thing my dad did when he was told he had myositis. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to use all the time. I'm going to do all the things that I can for as long as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be grateful for the time that I have
Mm-hmm.
and be grateful for those who support me in it. And I'm going to tell them thank you every day. That was his gratitude, was a thank you every day for those who were around him.
Yes.
Right. And those are the things we can do when we are facing things like malformations that want to kill us, or those who are doing long haul COVID, or those like Stephen who are survivors of someone who's died of a really horrific disease. You
Mm-hmm.
can still find the meaning and find the gratitude for daily life.
Right. Right. I'm going to add another part to this is what if you have a sense of humor. I do say
Mm-hmm.
if. Some people's senses of humor include, once again, feeling more powerful by putting others down. And, some people pull rabbits out of a hat. I think she has a magic hat and she pulls oodles out of a hat.
Yes. Walter just flew in front of the camera.
That's so funny. That's so funny. So I think a sense of humor that if you need to feel okay, let me say this. Political humor that is out there, on there's not just two sides anymore. There's like three or four. But political humor, while it can give you a sense of power briefly, it doesn't take away the fear, but it gives you a relief valve, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is one sense, because that particular type of humor actually puts another party down. That particular humor puts people in that administration down, whatever administration it is. And for people in Illinois, I strongly suggest, if you want to see some great political humor from the 1800s with Abraham Lincoln, go to the Lincoln Museum in Springfield, Illinois.
Right.
Great political humor. So, another type of humor doesn't put anybody down, but it does swing. It's called exaggeration and minimization. One of the best, I don't know if people would know this now, but in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, this is minimization humor. There is a knight that gets his arm slashed out and it's splurting blood, like anything. And he goes, "Come back. I'm okay. Look, I still have another arm." And then his arm gets, so now it's splurting out both ways. He goes, "Come back. It's only a flesh wound," right? It's more than a flesh wound, right? And it minimizes what's going on.
Right.
Maximizing, another joke is, in my case, cavernous malformations. I have two of them in my brain. And um, the problem is, under extracranial pressure, however that manifests, they can explode. Now, we've all seen exploding brains in cartoons and stuff, but the best one is a movie called Mars Attacks. Have you never seen Mars
I've
Attacks?
never seen Mars Attacks. Is that like the attack of the tall woman?
It is very funny. It has a lot of famous actors and actresses in it.
Okay.
I highly recommend it. I found it hilarious. So one of the parts is the Martians, their brains explode and out comes green slime. And I'm
Oh,
like, maybe green slime will come out of my brains. That's an exaggeration, right? And it makes me smile. And it makes me smile. And yes, sometimes it grosses other people out. And you know what? It's all about me.
Right.
I'm the one
This is
who
your
has
coping.
these. You don't.
Mhm.
And there you go. Another exaggeration would be, well, that's a great way to go. You know, you you make up, where will I be? I don't know if I want to be on the toilet. Maybe I'll be standing in front of people and
Now that would be truly Deb
yeah,
with the red nose,
with a red nose, and my brain goes
right?
right. And so, and green slime, and I've slimed everybody. Maybe I'll have googly eyes on. What a picture. And so using a sense of humor that is unique to your style, because you're the one either dying or suffering, I one
That
of
was Linda's way of doing things. When she
yes,
was
from
dying, she was her last week she was in a hospital bed. She refused before then.
mhm.
And she had a Spider motorcycle. And if you don't know what a Spider is, it's a Can-Am product. Thank you, Canada. And it could do 180 miles an hour, and it had the two wheels in front and one in the back. She
Yeah,
loved it because she could put her oxygen tank in the front area and then run it up through her helmet and still drive her bike and still run oxygen. Not recommended, folks. Not
no,
recommending that at
gasoline,
all.
no,
They go
no.
boom. But it was her way of, this is my end of life and
Right,
I'm going to do it my way.
right,
But she also told anyone who walked in that week, now look, we have double indemnity on our life insurance policies. So when I die, I want you to strap me on the bike and just turn it on so it goes across the street and hits the tree. Because then we can have them declare it an accident and Jill gets double the policy value.
that's great.
About half the people, the ones who knew her well, left.
Right.
Some of the nursing staff, not so much. They did not think that was so funny. But she really thought that was a good way to cope with her literally impending death that was coming any
Right,
day.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to take control with humor,
Mm-hmm.
take control of your narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have the gratitude, you have the control. So
Right.
these are 3 ways of dealing, more than just dealing, coping with loss, impending loss,
Here.
impending death, and fear. This is what you do, and pain.
Right.
Oh, so I had an operation. I had an operation. It was a hysterectomy. I did everything perfectly. I got out of bed, I walked, and yet my belly blew up. Did I ever tell you this story?
No, I'm glad you didn't, because I would have not wanted to know this before mine.
Oh, and so my belly blew up. And they kept saying, you're going to need this, you're going to need that. And finally, the next day, I was in such pain that they gave me what's called a to and fro enema, right?
Oh, mm-hmm.
Well, in fact, the night before, some minister from the Methodist church showed up, and he goes, and I'm writhing in pain.
Right.
And he says, how can I pray for you? I didn't know him very well. I said, pray for gas, Father. Pray for me to fart. And so he's like, he's sort of one of those. But the next day, while they did the to and fro enema, I sang tiny bubbles at the top of my lungs. The nurses, everybody was coming in. What's going on? In the wine. Going into the enema thing. And I took control of, it was
A really
embarrassing.
difficult, embarrassing situation.
I did. And you know what? Either you liked it or you didn't, but that's what I did. And
Right.
I hope to be of some sound mind to be able to do that when I die. Or as we see, I don't want to know. The day before, the broker calls up and says, well, we're headed for a recession, and, who knows what money we lost. I'll find out later.
I'm not looking right now. I
No,
believe in
I'm not.
denial is a coping skill sometimes.
You know
It's
what? It's a perfectly acceptable coping skill for a while
right.
till you
Right.
need to really, yeah.
So let's use our sense of humor, folks, as we're getting through this next week.
And gratitude.
And gratitude and making meaning of that which we can make meaning of, and letting go of that which has no meaning and is just drama and trauma. And in the
Exactly.
meantime, those in the Midwest, please hang on tight and duck for cover. If there's another big sound in the sky and cloud in the sky, listen to those alarm bells, please.
Right.
And
I recommend Mars Attacks. If you want to make it a big party,
there you go.
Start baking green cake. You have barbecue. You'll understand once you see it.
Stephen sends out wishes for a beautiful weekend. Shabbat Shalom. Same to
Shabbat
all those
shalom.
who are celebrating Shabbat tonight.
Yes.
And we will see you on the other side next week. And best wishes going out to my longtime childhood friend who's in surgery at this very moment. Surgery number 2 this week alone. So we will, and the attack of the 50-foot woman. And that's for my friend, because that's what she should be watching right now. We wish everyone a good week. We'll be back next week. Thank you for being here or for listening later.
See you then. Bye-bye.